Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I'm doing it because I'm seeing lots of comments from people all over the internet right now about, like, why is it that doctors and scientists and parents don't want to make America healthy? And we do. Like, a lot of the work that I see all of us doing is because we want Americans and people across the world to be healthy. But again, I think the issue is the way that that is being addressed. That might be a common thing, is we want people to be healthy, and the ways that we want to tackle that issue is what is different between these groups of people. So I'm going to tell you guys a story as an illustration of one of the things that needs to happen if we really want people to be able to be healthy. So I've shared a little bit before that I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian background, and that means that I was raised to believe the Bible was the literal interpretation, literal 7-day creation, all of those things. I was not allowed to do a lot of things. I couldn't watch a lot of TV shows. I didn't watch any sort of Disney until I was a lot older, like adult old. So it was a very different background than a lot of people have. And this is not to say that all Christians or all fundamentalists will have this type of experience. This is my experience. I'm telling you my story, which is, I'm giving you some context. I also was raised in a family where we weren't vaccinated. We had a religious exemption for that. My mom was very much opposed to vaccine. So as I've shared before, that means I didn't get vaccinated until I was about to graduate college. What I have not talked as much about is that when I was about 10 or 11, somewhere around there, that range, I forget the exact age I was, my dad left us for another woman, and he moved in with her. And of course, that's a whole other topic given the background that I was raised in. But that's what happened. And my dad didn't divorce my mom. My mom, again, because of the background, was like, we don't get divorced. So they were married still. My dad paid our rent and our heat and electricity. And then what he did was he gave us $20 a day for groceries, and literally every day. Like, he would, if we were lucky, he would drop them off in the morning, like the money in the morning. And my mom didn't work, and she didn't drive. So that was all we had. And I mentioned, like, if we were lucky thing, because there were days where my dad he was busy with whatever. And he didn't bring the $20 a day for groceries. So we were really, really poor. It was hard for us to buy food. And now that I'm a mom, I often think of how many times did my mom go to sleep hungry because she made sure that we had food. And I bet it was a lot. But because we had such limited amount of money, we mostly lived off of whatever we could afford. So lots of macaroni and cheese, lots of frozen. So growing up, I did not have a good diet. There was very little food that I tried, to the point that when I was 17, that was the first time I had a burger. In fact, I snuck it because I wasn't allowed to eat red meat for other reasons. When I was about to move to Maine for graduate school, my professors took me out to have seafood because I had never eaten seafood in my life. So I don't think anyone is saying that, we shouldn't talk about the importance of a healthy diet, and that healthy diet should be balanced fruits and vegetables, fruit, like carbohydrates, proteins, fats from varied sources, and all of those things. But people tend to say, hey, it's all just processed food. It's all just additives and food dyes that are the issue. And they're ignoring the bigger issue, which is access to food. Access. So when people are focusing on removing ingredients, maybe sometimes I wonder if that's because that seems like the easier thing to do, when the reality is removing a bunch of ingredients, if some of those things make them self-stable or less likely to be contaminated with bacteria, then prices are going to likely go up, food will spoil faster. Like, there's a lot of other things that we can talk about, or other people can talk about. But the bigger issues that have to be addressed are those societal factors. And I've seen lots of really great people put posts out about these. Things like access to food and having the ability to not have to work 4 jobs so that you have the time to go exercise, or the ability to afford medical care so that you can prevent things from becoming issues. And I know a lot of people have posted about this, but going back to the story idea, for people who maybe haven't lived this experience, I wanted to give you a chance to hear my experience living this. And it was really hard. I spent so much of my brain time thinking about, like, was my dad going to bring us the $20 for groceries? Or if not, what were we going to eat? Or could somebody else let us borrow money? Once I was old enough to work, I contributed a lot to the family. But we were still really poor. Like, we often didn't have a lot of Christmas presents. Sometimes we got some help from the town. And then when I did have health issues, because I had health issues as a teenager, we had a hard time, like, coming up with the money for copays, like, or getting to the doctor. Like, it was hard. And I don't know if I can adequately explain how hard it was. And honestly, there were times that I felt too hard and impossible. And I am so privileged because I had people in my life. I had teachers. I had some parents of my friends who, for whatever reason, saw something in me and were willing to put in the effort to help me get out. Now, don't get me wrong. I worked hard, but hard work never would have been enough. Never. Because no matter how hard I worked, the money that I was making was going to make sure my little brother didn't have to worry about food as much as I did. And all those other things that I was helping to do. My mom didn't go to high school, so I didn't know, like, how to go to college. I didn't know how to pay for college or pay fees for things. And because my parents weren't divorced, sometimes I didn't qualify for certain things. Because my dad made money, we just didn't get any of it. And no matter how hard I worked, that wouldn't have been enough. And that is the thing that I think people don't understand. So that's why I am emphasizing the fact that I have privilege, because I'm one of the lucky ones, because I had the ability to work hard. I had a body that was able to do that. And even though the systems failed me and my family unit failed in many ways, I had other people who personally invested money and time and energy. But that is not what everybody has access to. So if we really want to make sure that Americans are healthy, we need to make sure that conversations include systemic issues. And remember, I wasn't vaccinated as a kid. It did not make me healthier. In fact, I would argue I was very much unhealthier in my childhood than I am now. And I think there's a lot of complicated reasons for that. But this is why conversations around helping people be healthy needs to include public health things, needs to include things like access to healthcare, needs to include things like access to dental care, needs to include things like ensuring that we live in environments, like environmental protections to help prevent pollution in our environment. That requires regulation, not less regulation. And that is a disconnect that I think a lot of us are having right now. And it's not that we don't want people to be healthy. It's just that removing ingredients from food and removing vaccines is not addressing those systemic issues that I know would have helped me. I know if you're listening to this, you're following me, so this may not have been all that helpful for you. But you can consider sharing it if you want to, sending people my way, or at least maybe it helps gives you some context, because I do see how if things in my life had gone differently, I could have easily seen how I also would have thought like things like getting rid of vaccines and getting rid of a bunch of things in food would have been better. I can easily see how that would happen. Because again, I think the common theme here is that we want better health, and it's the way to get that is different for us. So yeah. All right. I have to go do actual work now.